Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Graying Jedi podcast. I am Urza Master. Joining me as always, Jedi Master Psyllium Maas and Lord Uther. Gentlemen, welcome back to the Jedi Council chambers. Today we generously offer ourselves up to that galaxy far, far away and the Mandalorian Season 3. We pick up this journey with the Foundling and the other Mandalorians, and I think we have a lot to talk about here. So, Jedi Master Psyllium Maas, give us some background on this episode.
Thank you, Jedi Masters, Urza Master, and Lord Uther, and thank you, Graying Jedi fans worldwide, from way out north in Finland all the way here to the U.S. of A. We are on Chapter 20 of The Mandalorian Season 3, The Foundling. First aired on March 22nd, 2023. The writers were Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, showrunners, co-creators. This is Filoni's first credited script this season, co-writing with Favreau. And the director was the late Carl Weathers. And this would sadly probably be the last episodic television he would direct in his lifetime. He was not on camera in this episode, as he had been in his previous directorial effort in Season 2. But he definitely tackled a big special effects heavy episode here. He was not afraid. He was not doing three characters in a room. He wanted to be big, he wanted to be bold, and his vision endures. And we miss Carl, and we miss Grief Karga for a lifetime's body of work, and we pay our respects here in the council to him. This was also the return of another Star Wars figure. That would be Ahmed Best, who this time was not playing a lovable yet misunderstood Gungan, Jar Jar Binks, but in fact a brand new character named Kelleran Beck, who was a Jedi who fought off Order 66 on Coruscant during Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. The character that Ahmed Best played was actually first created in 2020 for Disney Plus streaming, and it was for a show called Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge. So Ahmed Best, as a game show host, in character as Kelleran Beck, that's where the character was, and so they lifted him and brought him into the storyline and canon as a Jedi Knight who interceded and liberated Grogu from falling to clone troopers' blasters, clone troopers with inhibitor chips that had been reprogrammed by the nefarious Darth Sidious, a.k.a. Chancellor Palpatine, a.k.a. the Emperor. So we had that. We also had John Carpenter's cinematographer, Dean Cundy, once again behind the camera for Chapter 20. Gentlemen, my thoughts on this one, you'll hear how I give a Kyber crystal at the end. This is I don't want to say change of pace, because this is exactly the pace that The Mandalorian has kind of already set. Last week, in Chapter 19, when we had the Dr. Pershing, Elia Kane extended Andorish storylines running, that was a change of pace. But this is what was always intended to be a traditional Mandalorian episode. The Mandalorian and Grogu get themselves in a pickle, and they have to solve it. And the episode kind of neatly begins and ends. There's a little bit of serialized storytelling with, Bo Katan slowly becoming more and more indoctrinated into the covert and losing some of her secular beliefs as she wants to embrace the faith, the children of the Night of the Way. So you have a little bit of that, but for the most part, this episode, it exists on its own terms, a search and rescue mission of a young foundling. And my biggest question is, why did they pick this planet, which seems really dangerous? They've got alligator monsters and dinosaurs in the water. They've got predatory raptors and hungry chicks in the air. Like, couldn't they have settled on a nice forested world where maybe there were just a few Ewoks or, something of that nature? But they know they're Mandalorians, they're tough, and they had to pick a planet where something's trying to kill them every 5 minutes. This episode also gives us, especially in the sort of opening James Bondian pre-credit sequence, what do Mandalorians? How do they train? There's combat training. There's artillery and shooting ranges. There's probably schooling for the foundlings. Classroom instruction and so forth. And so this episode, one of its strengths to me was just sort of making it seem as if this is what Mandalorian culture now and perhaps then looked like in terms of how they approach their day. Hey, we got to get up and we got to get the kids fighting, and that's
this is the way.
Exactly. So I appreciated it that for this. I don't want to make too much of the episode in and of itself, because what we have here, gentlemen, is a very well executed, very on point, on schedule episode of the show. We don't have a big mythology storyline going through here. We don't have Elia Kane or Moff Gideon or the rumblings of the Imperial remnants or all of that. It's like I say, it's a self-contained mission. It gives us more character. It gives us business with Paz Vizsla and the Armorer and Bo Katan. We explore simple things like, because it's your mission, you get to sit by the fire and you can eat by the fire, and we'll go off on our own and enjoy our dinner and remove our helmets so no one can see us. Although Bo Katan does remove her helmet, but again, hopefully no one was within eye view of doing that. And then on the same breath, we have a tiny little slice of Grogu's backstory from that fateful night. And we have a Coruscant chase that reminds us of Attack of the Clones, something we'll be covering very soon in the Graying Jedi. Be sure you tune in, folks, to catch our analysis of Episode 2 of the prequel trilogy, including a glimpse of that giant mountain that Dr. Pershing and Elia Kane just saw in the previous chapter. So it just all kind of comes together. It's not an episode like the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 6, From the Desert Comes a Stranger, where you had Ahsoka, Luke Skywalker, Cad Bane. Like, it doesn't try to reach new heights. What it tries to do is tell a good 33-minute Mandalorian, monster of the week, if you will, story. And I think on that level, I'm very satisfied with it. I don't think its reach exceeds its grasp. How did you guys feel on The Foundling?
Oh, okay. I think it builds, we wanted to build Mandalorian lore, and it does so, right? Like, we're getting a behind the scenes, like you said, of what it's like to train, and the bond that the Mandalorians have with their foundlings, right? And or with their younglings, and you even have Paz saying, "That's my son," at the end of this episode. I think that's really important. If, like, the first time I saw it, I thought it was a little bit of a filler episode, but I think the whole idea is to also strengthen the bond between Paz and Din for what we're going to see down the line. I won't spoil it, anything beyond that. But if you remember, it starts off as very adversarial, and now they're slowly starting to become closer. And again, I think that's important, which is why one of my favorite episodes will be down the line, and one reason why I actually buy a Paz Vizsla action figure is because of that episode. But we're starting to see it here. And can we just give a shout out to these writers giving redemption to Ahmad Best and to Hayden Christensen? Like, I would love to see more of Ahmad Best. They totally brought him back, in a sense, giving him redemption for that Jar Jar, though I still think Darth Jar Jar would be amazing. That's a whole nother story, literally. But then we've seen Hayden Christensen get redemption, and especially with our Attack of Clones conversation we're going to have. It's amazing what dialogue can do, even when the story. So if the storyline's there and you can see it and you agree with it, but the dialogue is bantha doo doo, then this is what we'll get to Attack of the Clones. But when it's really good, this is what we get. So and I told you guys I had a question for you, or maybe I had a revelation. The first time I saw this, why are they protecting Grogu so carefully? Why aren't they taking all the younglings and protecting all of them and getting them all out of there? Because the argument that Anakin killed all of them in one fell swoop, I can't completely go with that because the Jedi Temple was so huge. And I'm wondering if, and we'll see what you guys think, is this Yoda's kid, and they had to get him out of there? That's why he was being guarded and protected so carefully. That's why there was all this communication going on, to the point of Ahmad Best's character getting him out of there, almost sacrificing himself. Why was there a totally fueled, starship ready to leave? So is this Yoda's kid? Because, Yoda's obviously a very important figure. That's kind of where I'm at. Why Grogu? Why protect him that way?
I have a different take.
I'm just going to throw that at you.
Urza, you go first. I have a different take on that one. Let's hear what you have.
Well, I think it's interesting. I like the point about redeeming some of these actors and or characters. I think the writers did a fantastic job with this. I too would love to see a Darth Jar Jar, but I think the real explanation is Jar Jar's just an idiot, and that's why Palpatine, put him in the place that he knew he was going to be. I think Jar Jar's just dumb. that's how that plays. I also think that, saving Grogu is probably just because he's the youngest. Honestly, he's probably just like the one Jedi baby that was there. Because you got to remember, at the time, he was way, way smaller than he is, as we're seeing him now. So he's in his 50s, right? In Mando. So, Mando's taking place long enough after that prequel trilogy. So it's what, like 20 plus years ish? So
probably, yeah.
25, 30 years. So he's probably like, 20 years old, but in his species, baby. Like still in a pod, unable to walk, all that stuff, baby. So my thought is, this is probably just circumstance of like, this is probably like the youngest Jedi out there. Even though it's from the same race as Master Yoda, it's Order 66. It's chaos. I have a feeling that these Jedi were just trying to protect the youngest youngling, or the most helpless youngling, shall we say. And I think that just lends itself to Grogu's character. Because Grogu was essentially helpless for so long, and now starting this foundling training is kind of coming into his own as, being capable of doing more than just sort of being there. Which I think is kind of nice writing in a way. Like, this is a coming of age type story. And it makes me really wonder, like, where is Grogu gonna go next? The whole Mando and Grogu story. Like, what's in store for this little green guy? That I find intriguing. I do like that this episode itself is just a standalone-ish Mandalorian episode. I like how they're building the camaraderie of these religious Mandos, if you will. And I love Bo Katan kind of buying into the way. And that scene between her and, the armor, just at the end of the episode, is just like, oh. I mean, that's two worlds colliding, right? The secular and the religious, and like both talking about the mythosaur, and one's like, I actually saw this thing. Well, you know, like, I don't know, everything about it just, like, it feels so right. It feels very much in the universe. It's immersive. It's a vehicle episode, yes, but it just comes across as really quite successful. And some of the, like, little things are really nice. Like, so how do you eat with everybody else around? Like, oh, we just all go off to our quiet little corners where we can safely take our helmet off and eat. Like, it's so simple, but, like, everybody was wondering. You know what I mean? Like, everybody had that same question, and it's just, again, kudos to the writers, but it's the logistics of living the way that it's just like, wow, that is a detail you never thought you'd be so excited to learn. But it really does explain a lot. And the tribalism, too, of, like, you're the war leader, you get to sit by the fire. We all have to go off in the buggy darkness and, you know, eat our beans. I really, like, it felt very Western. It really had that Mandalorian feel that we get in those couple of episodes in season 1, you know, where you're just like, wow, this is a great sci-fi Western. So it was exciting.
All right, real quick on Lord Uther's point. I read that completely differently, that they were going out of their way to protect Grogu. I thought if there were 20 younglings there, that they all would have been herded onto that ship that was waiting, you know, like, we'll get any survivors on board. It just so happened that, you know, don't forget, flash forwarding a little bit to episode 3, the one representative sequence of Anakin wiping out the younglings, they're all huddled together in a room, basically in a classroom, you know, with no supervision or no Jedi in there, you know. Master Skywalker, you know, is everything all right, kind of a thing. And then he ignites his lightsaber and presumably, you know, offs them all. I mean, it's a horrific image now, even post Sandy Hook, which, you know, this thing, obviously, those were shot well before that. But I feel like if there had been multiple younglings that were running around, and we've seen this in Ahsoka, and I think we've seen it in Obi-Wan, I think, you know, like you say, there were fights everywhere. There were Jedi being cut down in every, you know, antechamber and nook and cranny of the temple. You know, there was multiple. We've seen multiple, quote, survivors, or at least people who thought they got out. Again, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, Moses Ingram, you know, played one of the Inquisitors who was, you know, part of that and managed to get out. So certain younglings did survive, traumatized obviously heavily, but I love your reading of it, that they were specifically keyed into this Grogu, this, you know, has a significance. I just had never considered that. I just thought, well, he's there and they're just trying to save everybody, and they're getting you know, the troops are getting cut down. And like I say, if Beck had opened the elevator and there were 15 of them, let's go, everybody, let's go. Get on these speeder bikes and let's go to the, you know, platform. There's a ship waiting for us. That's how I read it. But yours is equally.
And I hadn't considered it either. And to relate back to another podcast we do, which is the Warp Core. Upon multiple viewings, so I think this is my third time maybe seeing this episode, for some reason it just seemed really, really odd that they are all about protecting this kid, and then Ahmad Best is just waiting for him at the top of the elevator. I just right. I can't help but that one seemed odd. So here's my, go ahead, do you want to say something before I have a question for both of you?
I was going to say, it's a nice echo to the protection of the current foundling, which is, you know, everybody basically drops everything and they send their toughest warriors out to rescue Paz Vizsla's child. I mean, it's a nice echo, right? I mean, and I don't know, again, how intentional, or just it's just a nice rhyming of the episode, you know, like kids are our future.
And I'm actually happy you brought that up, because my only issue with this episode is Paz says, this has happened multiple times before. Are we not going to put a net over our establishment or something to stop this thing, or post guards to stop this thing from coming? Especially if you had an alligator up on your beach, you think you'd be looking a little bit more for these things to possibly happen. Or like you said, let's move. It's time to get out of here. We need to go somewhere else. There has to be a better fortified place. That is a killer beach, literally. I mean, come on. Here's my question. Ready? I just off the top of your heads. Urza Master first, then Fert. Percentage that this is that Grogu is Yoda's child. Go.
0.
Okay. Fert.
Hey, I'll flip a Republic credit or a chance cube. I'll say 50% because honestly,
Okay.
you just opened up a whole door that I just never even knew was sitting there.
I'm going 75. Ready? Urza, percentage that he is in the new trilogy with Rey. Go.
50.
Fert.
I'll go 75.
Ooh. I'm going to go 75 as well. Because I'm wondering, so, all right, one more question, because I'm a teacher, I'm all about questions, and now you know what my students go through in class.
Boxers. Oh.
Is the next trilogy, is it really relying on Rey, or is Grogu the one that might be carrying this torch forward and changing this whole thing? Urza Master. You don't have to give percentage or comment. I'll take either.
I'm going to go 25%.
Okay.
And I'm going to qualify that by saying I think they probably won't throw Rey away, but I think that Grogu makes enough money as a merchandising effect that I feel like it would make good business sense, and I think that sometimes that's going to trump story.
But all right, because with your business sense comment, do you think a good story can come of it? Because I think that's a great point about the business piece. But is the story worth it?
I think they could make a good story with it.
Okay.
It would be something like rebuilding the Jedi Order, probably in some capacity, like behind a Yoda type figure as opposed to a Skywalker.
For
I've been in Disneyland 9 times in the last year, aiming for 10 this week. The Grogu merchandise is selling a lot better than the Rey merchandise, so I'll echo Urza Master's comments there. On the same breath, everyone talks about we've got to make Grogu, the centerpiece, and he's the Force, and he's the new thing. I can tell you this. I would expect that the Grogu we see in the Grogu in Mandalorian is not the Grogu we've seen in 3 seasons of this show. And you should brace yourself because he's going to start talking. And he's going to start, moving around and doing motion capture and the cute little puppet that's shooting darts and making baby seal noises and things. I think we might have seen the last of that version of Grogu. I really do. So be prepared
which is very
for evolution.
Which is very Yoda-ish, because I know our next one we're going to have is Attack of the Clones, but Yoda was deceiving. We all thought he couldn't move. You look at Grogu, and he's like the slow-moving thing, and then we see him flippity-floppity-jumpity, just like Yoda, which again, I'm not saying that's going to tie it to making it Yoda's child, but is that something that is this race, which we don't know enough about, is it very Force-prone, or is that what its race is kind of known for? So I kind of like that question is still out there, and I don't even think in the Legacy books they really touched upon the Yoda race, right? Which I kind of like.
We know next to nothing. I mean, go to any Star Wars database online and try to look up Yoda, and I'm sure it says species unknown, homeworld unknown. Like there's so much.
Yeah.
There's so many fill in the blanks, which they may or I mean, and I think Urza Master might have said this in an earlier thing. I don't need every blank filled. Like I don't need to know the name of Yoda's species. I think he's a gas alien. If you want to address it and it's organic and authentic and it feels real, then by all means. But I don't think for the sake of just I need closure and clarity, please tell me, where is his home world? What's the weather? What do they eat? I mean, I don't necessarily, as a diehard Star Wars fan, I don't necessarily need that to enjoy.
Because the last thing you want is a Christmas special, Star Wars Christmas special, where you see Kashyyyk for the first, or I always say the name of it wrong. Yeah, and those Wookiees are incredibly disappointing. Like, I don't want to know if that's going to be the case. Luckily, they fixed that
Life Day
in,
is
yes.
real, so.
Luckily, it all gets fixed in the prequels, but good God Almighty, the carnage that came about from the Star Wars Christmas special.
Odd live.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think we need every detail of every Star Wars race. I know for sure, in Mando and Grogu, we're going to see more of his race, which is cool. And I do think, like, it's probably time, right? I mean, if you're going to move this franchise forward, it's time. But I also think that there's so much more you can do with this character by leaving some question marks out there. There's probably hundreds of millions of these little green guys running around, but only one was Yoda, only one was Yaddle, and only one is Grogu. I think you start to lose a little bit of the mystique and the fun when you have to over-explain it. Be like, they're all Force sensitive on his world.
Right.
But we'll see. I think the fact that we're talking so much about Grogu, and that, I mean, this has been a number of years now since Grogu first came on the scene, still super popular, particularly among children. This is not something Disney's going to toss away lightly, just for the sake of canon. So I think, I don't think there's a huge chance that Grogu's going to be in the Rey trilogy, but I do think Grogu's going to be in more features. I think that's just inevitable. Because, again, if you're Disney, you're not throwing this character out. You're not killing him off because Kylo Ren killed all the Padawans. Like, no, it's not going to happen. So that, I think, gentlemen, brings us to our Kyber Crystal ratings for the Foundling in this episode of Mando. Jedi Master Psyllium Maas, let's start with you this week. What did you think?
I think it's a blue Grand Admiral Thrawn this week. Like I said, a absolutely like clockwork episode of The Mandalorian that doesn't elevate the story to taking it to an impossible new height, like the introduction of Luke Skywalker and killer Imperial droids. But in the same breath, it does nothing to diminish the mythology, the humor, the heart. I mean, if anything, like this bond of family, we've seen this season Din Djarin specifically trying to take a Grogu and fit him into a square peg. You're a Mandalorian. You need to train. You need to learn navigation and how to fly. And he's really trying to make this happen. And at first I might have been resistant, saying, well, let the kid pick his own destiny and so forth. But it's clear when Grogu chose Din Djarin over Luke and his offer to train that this is what he wants. So it's not like he's some, little league parent, like, you're going to play baseball and you like it. In this case, like, Grogu, I think, wants to do it. He's just a little perplexed by, like, all of these rituals and so forth. He's not really... I got the sense when he was, doing the Karate Kid tournament, it reminded me of the All Valley Karate Kid tournament, 3 points. Point. When they were sitting there doing it with the darts. He's just kind of like, I'm not really into this, but it's important for you, so I'll try. And then, obviously, he goes for it. So I love that dynamic, and I think we'll see more of that in the future. So Thrawn Blue for this week.
Lord Uther?
I'm actually going to go double green.
Nice.
And here's why I'm going to go double green. We are going to see those little dragon birds show up with the mythosaur, and you're going to have Mandalorians riding those things into battle on Mandalore.
Like heavy metal?
Yes. Yeah. I'm predicting that right now. You are going to see that. I also like how Bo Katan is buying in on this entire thing, and that. Again, I think we're setting it up for that retake of Mandalore, which I do hope that we see, and we also get the armorer fashioning a whole nother piece for Grogu, which I'm still trying to figure that out because I thought he had the chainmail, but now it looks like he's got this big '70s medallion on him. But I think it might be something else. Is it going to deflect a possible lightsaber blow at some point, or a dark saber? I don't know. But I think we're seeing, look, we saw excellent writing. We saw the redemption of Ahmad Best. If I wish the rest of the season, whoever wrote these episodes and had these ideas would have done it the entire way, because we have some stinkers coming up. Spoiler alert. But an absolutely beautiful, beautiful episode.
And I will follow that up with a Pro Football Stars 1994 green with a hint of blue. It's a vehicle, right? It's giving us a straightforward Mandalore story. It's setting up the future, but I think it was done really well, and I found it to be a lot of fun to watch. And I think it does give us enough of a forecast of the future for Grogu that it begs these questions, and I think that's something that you can take home and you can love up on, and you're going to enjoy yourself, because that's what you want out of an episode of Star Wars anything, because you want it to hook you. You want to feel immersed. You want to feel like there's more out there that you're waiting to watch, and that it's never going to end. So that I got that feeling. I'm going to roll with that feeling. And until we come back to this galaxy far, far away to meet up with Mando and Grogu again, I'll say to you all, as we say each and every episode here on the Graying Jedi podcast, may the Force be with you.
And also our internet providers.